One of the ego's tools that it likes to use to keep us stuck is the idea that if you make a mistake, you're done. You may as well just forget about it. You can't come back. And it'll do it very subtly sometimes. For instance, if you've been building up a meditational practice and then you fall off for a few weeks, it'll say, well, you've fallen off for a few weeks, so why bother starting again? If you have been really working on your ability to stay calm in certain situations and you lose your cool, then the ego will tell you, well, you lost your cool, so you're not very good at this, so don't bother with that anymore, etc. And we kind of believe that hypnotic spell that we are put under, that we are bound by our mistakes, and there's nothing we can really do about that, so why bother? Sometimes it's very overt if it can get away with it, but frequently the ego realizes that if it gets too overt, that we make choices to disregard the ego, so it likes to keep things subtle, and often will just sprinkle breadcrumbs along a certain path that we end up following that takes us farther and farther away from what I call, or what Crowley called, our true will. If the true will is a concept that you're not familiar with, it's the idea that each and every one of us is a unique expression and extension of the infinite. And there's not one person on the planet who is more or less important than anyone else. Just like there's no star in the sky that is more or less important than any other star. There's no flower in the garden that's more or less important than any other flower. Some flowers are more dramatic than others, but that doesn't mean they're more important. And much like the nasturtiums don't cry that they're not roses, we don't need to compare ourselves to other people because nobody can compare to us. When people are in competition for the attention of another person, etc., it's belaying the idea that they don't understand that no one can compete against them because they're the only them that exist. Just like we each have a thumbprint, we each have a facial structure that's unique to us. We also have a unique soul print, and we are a unique expression of or extension of the infinite. And as such, that unique extension holds with it the coding, if you will, for a perfect life. C-O-D-I-N-G, coding, like computer coding. That coding is our true will. And if we are working within our true will, things seem to happen well for us. And when we are outside of our true will, things don't seem to happen well for us. When more people are working along the lines of their true will, there is more harmony in the world. Whereas when people are working at odds with their true will, there is less harmony in the world. Now, two people that are completely at one with their true will can never get in each other's way. There's enough resources for everybody to complete whatever their tasks are that their true will has for them to complete, their mission, if you will. If you're committed to finding and walking your true path in this world, the universe responds by giving you everything that you need to do that in abundance. This is a great question, and it comes up, and it should come up. Why in the world did a loving creator create an ego for us to constantly tempt us off of our true path? And the truth of that is that the creator didn't create an ego. We did. The creator has nothing to do with our egos. In reality, our egos don't exist. They're an illusion. They're a nothing. They're a dream that we concocted, and we do it together as a group mind. We all, as souls on our true path, with our true will, are expressions of the divine. Together, we are one oversoul, each with its own specific role to play. Just like all the different organs in your body have different roles to play. Different species on the planet have different roles to play. There's an ecosystem. The same thing is true with the oversoul of humanity. We each have our own roles to play. That is frequently called the Holy Child, or in Christic terms, the Son of God, or Christ. But from a witchcraft perspective, it's the one true Holy Child of the infinite that we all are. And that does not negate the idea that we are each individuals. If you look at the word individual, it means indivisible. The ego mind is not individual, it's divided. The ego mind is an idea of dividing ourselves from the whole, dividing ourselves from our source. The ego comes from a thought that was contemplated by the Holy Child of the Infinite of I am separate. What would it be like to be separate from each other? What would it be like to be separate and alone? What would it be like to be different than and separate from the Creator? Our minds are creative. Our minds are powerful. We can create an experience of whatever we desire. That doesn't make that experience objectively real, but it does make it real for us. The idea that we're all dreaming dreams of separation and having an experience of a world in which we are all separate from one another, having to fight for resources and having to find any sense of harmony with one another, is a product of our contemplation of the idea of separateness. The ego mind is nothing more than a thought system born from the idea of I am separate. So that's that. The infinite didn't create the ego, and that's why the ego doesn't exist, but we are free to think anything we want to. So we can think things that don't exist. And that's how we get this illusory world, because that's how powerful our minds are. The true will is not at odds with any other true will, nor is it at odds with the Creator, yet each will is perfectly unique. The thought system of the ego is a habit we have gotten into that is constantly trying to take us out of our unity, to take us out of our true will, because our true will is indivisible, is individual. The reason why that's true is because we programmed this part of our mind to do that. And then we fell asleep to that idea so that it looks like and it feels like things are happening to us in this world. And we forgot that we, as a species, as a collective, thought this. And that is depicted in magical metaphysical terms as the fall of Lucifer. Lucifer's rising is the idea of remembering that none of that's true, that we really are one and that we are indivisible. The ego mind is constantly trying to reinforce its narrative that we're separate. And one of the ways it does that is that anytime we make a mistake or we fall off of our path, it tries to convince us it's all over now. There's no way back. So don't even try. So let's just stay separate because you're ruined. You're damaged goods. You made a mistake. Since it's learned the best way to keep us stuck is to do things subtly and to keep our minds busy on other things, we are so busy we don't stop to question what we're thinking. We take these ideas of, I can't start over, I'm bound by my mistakes, I'm bound to my past with us, and we're not hypercognizant of the fact that all of our motivations are colored by those ideas. We have interactions with our careers, with our spouses, with our friends, with our coworkers, with money, with our car, with our property, whatever is going on the screen of space, interacting with those things as if we're damaged goods, as if we're bound by our mistakes and we can't start again. We can't be happy, really. So we have to substitute something for that happiness that we can't find because we've messed up. The idea of original sin is usually something that's used to abuse young children into thinking that they're not good enough so that they can be controlled. In reality, the idea of original sin is important only if it shows us the original lie, that somehow we could sully ourselves, that somehow we could be less than, somehow we could make our Creator stop loving us. From the Creator's point of view, none of that even exists. But from the ego's point of view, that's everything. We fall unconscious to our own power of thinking and projecting experiences onto the screen of space. And we are under this false assumption that we are not good enough, we're less than, and there's nothing we can do about it. So let's just make our way in the world the best we can. We start to substitute our happiness with other things like money, like relationships, sex, food, you name it, all of the things in the world, alcohol, drugs. None of these things are inherently good or bad, but we make them into our own personal idols. What an idol is something finite and restrictive, whereas your true will is boundless and universal. The idols that we choose to worship in this world are not the problem. It's that we believe they can satisfy us. We believe they can bring us a substitute for happiness. What we don't understand is every time we go to one of those idols out in the world to bring us happiness, we are turning our back on our true will, because the idols represent limitation. The belief that happiness can be found in a specific form or a specific thing, and that by narrowing your focus to these things, you can somehow gain fulfillment. But this approach will never satisfy us, because the deeper truth that we organically will always search for is only to be found in our true will, only to be found in our completeness. Chasing idols is what leads to an idea of loss, but embracing the truth of our true will grants us everything. The joke of all of that is that many of the things that we're seeking as idols are just given to us when we work with our true will. The money just happens organically when we're working our true will. The relationship that we think is so important just starts happening for us. We cease to be attracted to the things that are unhealthy for us when we are involved in our true will. The true will sorts those things out for us. What we really seek is that true will, and that true will cannot be found in any single form. No single form can replace the boundless love that we are. Love under will. Love under will. Which will are we under? We are under the divine will, and we are an expression of divine will. We can't stop that. We can't make that not be true, but we can hide from that truth. We can forget that truth. We can create barriers to our expression of that truth. When we realize this, we understand that we really don't desire these things that we think we do, because these things never can fulfill the longing that is within us. The only thing that can fulfill the longing that is within us is our true will. Instead of allowing our true will to become narrowed into personal ego will and reduced to something that is small and finite and mortal, our true will is immortal and can never end. Our true will is not limited. Our true will is limitless and complete. And these idols that we search for are all what is limited and incomplete. The search for these things stems from a desire to be whole. It doesn't just come out of nowhere. It's just a misdirected, misguided understanding of what our true desire is. True will, true desire can't have a form ultimately because it's limitless. You're affirming the belief that something within you is missing, and nothing is missing in your true will because you were created perfect. And when you find the thing that you think is going to make you happy, it may seem like in the moment that you found the key to your completeness, but that's the very function of the ego's search for idols in the first place, to distract you, to divert your attention away from your true will, to keep you fixated on the surface and mask the core belief that you are incomplete. Because if you saw that belief for what it is, the idea that I'm incomplete, I'm separate, if you saw that for what it was, you'd say, I don't believe that. That can't be true. You'd want to change that belief. So that's why the ego doesn't like to be too overt with these things. Keeps you busy. How busy are we chasing our idols? We have to remember that when we catch ourselves chasing these idols, once we recognize it, the ego will use that as a weapon against us and say, well, you've been seeking idols. You're doing everything that is the antithesis of your true will, so you're doomed. There's no beginning again. You can't start again. You've ruined it. You've destroyed it. Sometimes when we're in the deep throes of depression, the ego can be a lot more obvious because it just feeds into itself that way. But frequently, it won't be that obvious because it knows that it doesn't want to be busted. If we bust the ego, the jig is up. There's nothing it can do to save itself once we recognize it for what it is. So it does like to stay in the shadows. When you get that idea, why even bother? I've already screwed up. Rethink that. Recognize it for what it is and say, no, there's no way for me to, quote, sin. No matter what I think I've done or haven't done in the world of form, no matter which idols I've been chasing that have been diverting me away from my true will and how committed I have been to those idols, it doesn't matter. The infinite doesn't even notice those things. The only thing the infinite notices is how wonderful we are, how gorgeous we are, how beautiful we are. The infinite wants us to be awake and happy. That's its will for us, but it also understands that we have the freedom to do as we will. So we can be asleep to our perfection. We can be asleep to our happiness. We can chase these things that are only going to increase our distraction, increase our misunderstanding, increase our confusion. And even though the infinite always has given us a way out of that, like the Ariadne's thread out of the labyrinth, it has to be our decision. It has to come from us. And the best way for us to retrain ourselves is just in the moment. When you notice that you're feeling deflated because something didn't work out, when you reacted in a way that you didn't like, or you were chasing after something and you failed, or you succeeded and it didn't bring you happiness, whatever the reason for your dissatisfaction, the ego's always going to be whispering in your ear, look what you did. Just give up. None of this is worth it. You can't come back from this. When you notice that's happening, you have to wake up. There is nothing that you can't come back from. Remind yourself of that. There's nothing I can't come back from. I don't care what it is. When you're walking through your life, you're going to have plenty of opportunity to get back on the horse. And the ego will want to lull you to sleep into thinking, why bother? You've ruined it. You're a failure. Who do you think you are to be able to make a mistake and come back from it? And when that happens, that's a great time to call upon your higher power, whatever you call it, whether it has a name or not. Your guide, your guardian angel, your higher self, your true will, God, goddess, Hecate, whatever your higher power is called for you, and say, help me start again. Just like the sun comes up in the morning, you get to start again too. You can start again right now. You can just tell yourself, I'm starting over. Rebooting. I'm turning it off and turning it back on again, just like when my computer is not working so well. I'm going to reboot my day. Turn it off and turn it on again. And you call upon that higher power and you ask for help. I want to see this differently. I want my true will instead of this. And that is your right. You have a birthright to experience your true will. And if you've been diverted from your true will, join the club. The most common thing in the world. In fact, something that's not common in this world is staying on the true will or getting back on the horse, because most of us will listen to the lies of the ego and just stay stuck and say, what's the point? Because of my mistakes that I'm bound by, and never really question it, never really even realize how we're thinking. That's why I like those exercises where we just write out our thoughts on a piece of paper for a page. What am I thinking? And don't edit it. Just let it come up. And when you see all the nonsense that your ego is going on and on about, you realize, no wonder I feel so bad. But I have free will, and I can change these thoughts anytime I want to. And I can begin again right now. I want to start again. That's called grace. Grace is your birthright also. People think grace is something that we don't deserve, but because God's such a nice dude, that he'll do it for us anyway, even though we don't deserve it. That's not how the infinite sees it at all. Grace is simply us awakening to the realization that our true will is the only truth, and anything that isn't our true will was a nightmare, was a diversion, was a dream. And grace is simply waking up to the truth again. And when we wake up to the truth of who we are, we wake up to the realization and understanding that the infinite doesn't hold anything against us. Then we're not at the effect of these idols. We're not at the effect of this ego, because we don't have anything to worry about. We don't have anything to protect. We don't have any reason to defend anything, because we are invincible. as our true will. We are immortal as our true will. We are eternal as our true will. You don't have to worry about what's going to happen to the sun. You don't have to worry about what's going to happen to the stars. They're going to burn no matter what you do, no matter what little game we're playing here on Earth. The stars are still going to shine. The Earth is still going to spin. The sun is still going to shine. Well, you're no different than those stars and that sun. You're going to continue to shine. But the ego wants to convince you that you're this little nothing. Little me, bound by my mistakes. And the infinite maybe is going to be nice enough to grant me some grace, even though I don't deserve it. That's nonsense. All of that's just nonsense by the ego. Don't buy any of it from your own mind, and definitely don't buy it from anybody that's talking to you. No matter what you think you've done or didn't do, you get to begin again right now. And all of your mistakes and the consequences of your mistakes are wiped clean. Now, that doesn't mean that in this world that you aren't going to have to clean up your mistakes, that you aren't going to have to make amends or do what needs to be done in this world. But if you understand that this world is just a temporary dream, when you understand that and you come back to the truth and the reality in your conscious mind that you are innocent and that you are divine and that you are not bound by your mistakes, miraculous things happen in the cleaning up of those old mistakes. You recognize that the universe isn't holding any of it against you. Therefore, the universe is there to help you clean it up and make it right in the three-dimensional world as well. But you got to start with your mind. You got to start with the invisible world. And that invisible world is always the causative plane. And according to truth, you are perfect. And you can't undo your perfection no matter how hard you try. You are not bound by your past. And any moment you can begin again. And I encourage you to begin again over and over until it sticks, until it clicks. And you don't have to keep doing that because you become habituated to the idea that every moment is new. You are always beginning again at each moment. You are innocent. You are perfect. The idea of being forgiven can feel nice. And I understand why a lot of people like that. Well, I'm not perfect, I'm just forgiven. But from an occult perspective, that doesn't work. Why would the infinite forgive you if it didn't condemn you in the first place? The infinite never condemned you because the infinite knows you're perfect. To get the grace of the infinite, you need to awaken to the fact that that's your birthright. And anything that you did or didn't do that was at odds with your true will didn't really happen. It only happened within the realm of this nightmare. And since it didn't happen, there's nothing to be forgiven for. But you have to allow yourself to awaken to your true will and commit to that and start again. The moment that you believe that you're bound by those mistakes, then you're going to believe that what's the point of trying again anyway? You don't want to get caught up in that ego game. Every moment is a new moment. And anytime you notice that you are feeling bound by your mistakes or feeling bad and feeling like what's the point, remind yourself, I'm caught up in a dream. I'm caught up in a nightmare and I want to awaken from it right now. I'm going to call upon my higher power and ask that I be shown the truth instead of this. I'm going to call upon the grace that is my birthright and get back to the work that I came here to do, which is the work of my true will. Thank you very much for joining me today. I so appreciate you. Until next time, blessed be.